Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I just want everyone to imagine on your first day, you get to the office and your supervisor tells you, no, you're not supposed to be here. You need to go over to the other building to visit HR before you can actually even start on the floor. And then when you get to HR, they're looking at you like, who are you? Why are you here? We didn't know that you were coming today. And you can see them trying to rustle papers and looking on the computer. You hear the tap, tap, tap of the computer, them trying to find out. Or what about on your first day, your manager shows you to your desk without even bothering to show you around, and you had to ask a random person in the hall, like, can you tell me where the restroom is? Or better yet, after 10 minutes of an orientation, you did get a view of the office. You do know where the restrooms are, but your boss sits you down with a stack of files saying, here you go ahead and start because you told us at the interview that you were ready to hit the ground running. And so there you go. Just imagine that. So raise your hand if those things happen to you and you would still want to come back the second day. No hands, right? Nobody wants to go through that. And so I know these stories sound crazy, but they are actually first day on the job stories. We want to put an end to the horrible first day on the job stories, and you all are well on your way because you've joined this session today. To avoid those bad experiences, you have to believe in onboarding. So let's talk about why onboarding is important. And first, we're going to start with the numbers. So I know you all took a poll at the beginning, and guess what? You are going to get the answer to that question. But let's talk about some other numbers first. 4% of new employees leave their jobs after a disastrous first day. So those stories that I told you, that's probably 4% because those are the people that probably still have their resume up, because you have to think when you hire someone, they don't immediately take their resume down. Just like when you're going out on those first dates, you don't immediately take your profile down because you don't know if this first date is going to work out, if this person is in it for the long haul. So you want your onboarding experience to get people to want to take that resume down. Then the next 22% of staff turnovers occur in the first 45 days of employee. 22%. And then you have 31% of new hires quit their jobs within the first 6 months. And then to the poll question that I had at the beginning, nearly 90% of employees decide whether to stay or go within the first 6 months. And we had 11% of the people on this session today to get that right. The highest number was people thought it was around 50%. And maybe you were thinking, when you're looking at the question, that people that actually leave, but it's really people deciding whether or not they're going to stay or go. It happens within that first 6 months. So one good thing is people are giving us a chance to onboard them, so they're not necessarily, all of them aren't leaving on that first day. So we have 6 months to get the bulk of the people to stay with us. So let's start talking about onboarding and what are some of the questions you should be considering when you're thinking about creating that onboarding process. First, what goals do you have with onboarding? Make new employees familiar with the overall goals of a company and support them as they embark on this early projects, all in the effort to achieve the perception of success and productivity. And you want them to do that very quickly. So you want them to get engaged and be excited about joining your organization. Also, when should your onboarding begin? And so onboarding should really, really begin at the very, very earliest point, and that is when you're putting out the job ad. During that interview, all of that is that onboarding process because all of that is aligned with getting that person excited about joining your organization. So if you're thinking onboarding starts when the person walks in the door, you're already a little bit behind that 8 ball. And then who are the vital team members in onboarding? You want to think about this when you're creating your onboarding process because it should be a lot of people. It shouldn't just be HR. It shouldn't just be the hiring manager. It takes everyone. And we're going to talk about that a little further as well. And then lastly, is onboarding the same as orientation? And so everyone probably knows the answer to that one, that onboarding is not the same as orientation. And we're going to talk about what those differences are. Now, onboarding is a part of orientation, but they are not they are not, you can't transfer or flip one for the other. You have to have them both. And so when we look at onboarding and we look at orientation, one thing is orientation lasts about 7 to 10 days, where onboarding will last to up to 1 year. And you're thinking, a year? Yes, Tanya said that correct. It is up to a year. Because think about when you first started out. Did you know everything in 90 days? No. Did you get better after 6 months, 9 months, a year? You get better as time goes on. So that onboarding works the same way. And then orientation is typically process driven because it's transactional in nature. It usually occurs within the first week. It's usually executed by HR. It's focused on completing the paperwork. And then where onboarding is more strategic in nature, it starts before that first day. It integrates multiple offices and functions and individuals, and it maximizes employee engagement and retention. Orientation is basically the introduction, and onboarding is the assimilation. So when you're looking at it, basically onboarding is a singular event to welcome the new hire and officially kind of establish them as a part of your company. The event generally occurs within that first week. However, onboarding is truly a process, and it's the perfect opportunity for you to make that positive, lasting impression on the new hire. An onboarding program that delivers in all the right ways will definitely, one, reduce time to productivity. We want them on the ground running, but we do have to do some help, like we have to get them the right tennis shoes, make sure that they're on, they have the right running outfit. So you can see I don't run. I called it running an outfit. But the proper clothing in regards to that piece. So we want to set them up for success because it's going to reduce stress and it's going to reduce turnover. So let's talk about some effects of a less dynamic onboarding program and the remedies that you can to make it better. So if you already have an onboarding program and you're doing some of these, we're going to talk about how you can improve that process. Mistake number one is lacking adequate culture assimilation. You don't want, that person to feel like they are the lone wolf or they are just, think about that person, when we were all in school and you got picked last for kickball. I mean, I don't even know if kids still play kickball. I might be aging myself right now. But when they don't feel like they're a part of something, it leads to loss of productivity, low morale, and high turnover. Like the person in the office who's always has the candy. So you want to let them know, like, give them some information. Who has the sweet stuff? Who do you go to for the ibuprofen? Or, who knows the great spots to eat around here? So you want to give them that real family feel because in reality, we spend 9 to 10 hours a day. And I know some people are like, I spend 10 to 12, 14, 15 hours in the office. But on average, we spend about 9 to 10 hours a day with our coworkers, and it's important to have solid relationships behind that. Culture is conveyed through company values, senior leadership, employees, and the relationships and communication presented throughout. So it's a really fluid type of thing. You can't The person has to feel like they are a part of. You can't just say that we have a team atmosphere. They really have to see it. And then the next mistake that sometimes people have is not providing enough tools or support. And so the effect of that is the new employee feels like they're just been thrown to the wolves. So you remember that story I talked about where the manager was like, well, you said you wanted to hit the ground running, that you could do the job immediately. Well, here you go, giving you the 10 stack of accounts and how you're supposed to manage those accounts. And then you're also tasked with upselling and cross-selling and growing those accounts. And you're like, I don't even really know how to turn on the computer. What is my password? So you don't want them to feel like they are an island. So you want to provide them enough tools and support so that doesn't happen. And the way you do that is each new employee should be assigned an onboarding partner, or I like to say an onboarding buddy. This person should know the role and how to support the employee throughout the first several months. Onboarding buddies should be trained to give feedback, answer questions, and act as a support system. Don't just say, okay, hey, Mark, you're going to be Tanya's onboarding buddy. And Mark is like, what? And Mark doesn't know what Tanya is doing. Or so you want to, let Mark know what Tanya is doing, how he can support Tanya, and just make sure that Mark is up in the know. Because sometimes I'm telling you, I have worked for a place where I had a buddy and the buddy was looking at me, wide-eyed, like, what? Like they didn't know that they were going to be my buddy. So how do you think that made me feel? Like, what, you didn't even tell Sean that I was going to be here today and that he was my buddy? Sean's sitting here trying to get his paperwork together because, he didn't want me to see everything that he had on his desk. I don't know what he had on his desk, but he was in a big hurry to kind of clean it up and move it and put it under some stuff. I did notice that. But so you just want to make sure that the person is aware that they're going to be this mentor person. And then the biggest mistake the last mistake, which is mistake number 3, is lack of structure. So the effect of that is that the employee feels confused and they just feel unprepared for their first 90 days and beyond. And remember that huge number, 90% of people are deciding whether or not they're going to stay or go within that first 6 months. So we don't want someone feeling, especially those first 6 months, that we don't know what we're doing. I mean, I always say, you don't have to, you don't want to show you're crazy. You may be crazy, but let's not show our crazy. So in an office, you may be a little disorganized, but let's not show the new employee how disorganized we are. Let's put on our Sunday best and our game face and show them the best and create a structure. And so that's really the remedy, is having an induction plan or having an onboarding plan is the key. It allows you to ensure you cover everything you need to with the employee, giving clarity to the who, the what, the when, the where, and that will allow them to quickly fit into and become an effective worker, because it's going to benefit you as well. The quicker you can get them up and running, the quicker you will have more production. The quicker you will reduce your stress. The quicker you will know, whew, I don't have to go through that hiring thing again. I don't have to interview anyone again. Even though Wendy last week did give us some great information on how to interview and how to get the best out of your interviews, we don't want to have to continue to interview and onboard people. We want to get someone in there, onboard them properly, and make sure that they stay. Now, of course, if we're hiring because of growth, that's always a happy time, because we're not hiring out of desperation because someone just quit. We're hiring because we're doing great work. And that's going to happen when you have a great onboarding process. Best in class organizations in terms of employee engagement, retention, and productivity, they are more likely to have a formal onboarding program in place that goes beyond just the basic new hire orientation. And so that's why we need to have that formal piece so we can ensure that our employees are staying with us. Now that we've kind of talked about the mistakes, let's talk about some strategies for building the onboarding plan. The first thing is you want to have milestones. You want to define your goals and objectives. I've already mentioned about employee engagement, and that's truly a key driver in onboarding and onboarding successfully. But you also want to increase the retention rates and shorten the time it takes for the new employee to be productive. More specifically, when we're talking about those milestones, you want to clarify the goals and objectives. You want to clearly communicate that to your new employee. You want to set goals and expectations for them as well, and introduce the performance management system for evaluating employees. On the first, second day, or first week, I would let them know when I was hiring, I would show them the performance evaluation. So there's no surprises. So we're all on the same page. You know exactly in 90 days what I'm going to be evaluating, what we need to work on, what you need to do to be a successful employee in here. Sometimes employees like to kind of hide that evaluation. Don't hide it. Put it out on the porch and let everybody see it. So we're all on the same page. Basically, you want to set goals, stretch goals, but don't stretch them so far that you break. You know, think about that rubber band. A rubber band is very stretchy, but if you stretch it too far, it will break. And we don't want to break our new people. We do want to stretch them though. Make a plan and be flexible. You can't be rigid. I mean, maybe they didn't hit the first mark, but let's not just throw them out and say, "Oh, well, they're not going to make it." Let's see. Maybe this part was a little harder, but second part is it comes a little bit easier to them. Get to work. So we're going to start working the plan if we're going to hit these milestones, and then you just want to stick to it and check in to see if you need to do any tweaks. So now when we get to the second strategy, that second strategy is training because now we've already got the goals and objectives in place. Now we want to turn our attention to training and performance support that will be used in the onboarding process. Do not neglect this area. You really want to focus on training. Training is going to be the end all be all of whether or not this person is successful. Because at the end of the day, what you're judging them on is can they do the job? I can't do the job if Katie never trained me how to do the job. So I want to be able to do the job. So make sure that you are utilizing training. First part is teach, or sometimes it's like classroom or instructor-led training. And this remains one of the most popular employee training techniques. Some people call it old-fashioned, but I say old is gold. I know that might sound cheesy, but it really is old. Let's not throw away our old ways. Old ways work. And because sometimes information, does need to be taught in a lecture style. That's because you have to actually teach them. So there's some things that I can't, you know, sit you on a computer and learn. I actually have to talk to you about it. But this doesn't have to, but this doesn't mean that the training has to be boring and humdrum. We can make it interactive. So you can have an interactive lecture. You can have an interactive teaching, but this is still a great method in regards to training. The second piece is e-learning. Now we're going to get to some of the new school because once again, new school is fine too. I mean, we don't have to, old school is great and new school is great. So when we're talking about e-learning, it allows employees to learn whether they are where they are, and it's flexible. And it's almost kind of like a self-study, a self-step type of learning where they can, when they're clicking on it, they kind of go through the process themselves. Employees can take courses online, which they can complete at their own pace and be exposed to new technologies and ways of thinking. The third piece of training is role playing. If employees deal with customers or they're interacting with people daily, role playing can be a very effective development approach and tool, because if you know that they're going to have irate customers because the deliverables weren't met on time, let's go ahead and role play this while we're in training. So let's get all the bad answers out of the way so it doesn't get escalated up to you, because you have other things to do than worry about the escalation calls. You have other things to do than worry about customers that are upset, and a great customer service person could have handled that situation and it wouldn't have to be escalated if they knew the proper words to use to kind of calm down the situation. Then the next is demonstration. Whenever possible, bringing tools or equipment that are part of the training topic and demonstrate the steps being taught or the process being adopted is also a great training tool that you can use. And then we have discussion. Sometimes breaking up small groups, bringing in veterans that's already doing the job, bringing in some of your star players into the training, and then we can have some discussions excuse me, of best practices, things that have worked out for them. And that way the new employee can kind of get a real world feel of what it's going to look like when I get in my office, when I get on the phone, or when I get out in the shop. Things like that, that you want, that maybe sometimes as training managers, we forget all the little things that happen in that position day to day, but a veteran that's already doing it, they won't forget those things. And so give them some best practices. So that's going to help as well. And then lastly, practice by doing, so that on the job training uses the regular and existing workplace tools, machines and documents, equipment and knowledge and skills necessary for the employee to learn effectively. So really getting their hands dirty basically can help them as well. So practice by doing, so they can kind of get a feel themselves. And then after that, they can come back and back to the teacher, back to that lecture session, and have some discussion in regards to the trainer. Or this is what I saw. How should I have handled this? Having those types of conversations and discussions will be beneficial. When you're looking at creating a training program for your onboarding process, I'm not saying one is better than the other. The best is having a blended learning, meaning using more than one training method to train on one subject. Maybe you want to do some of that lecture, e-learning, or role playing, or however you see this mix that works best for your organization. I would suggest, however, not just picking one. I would pick several because people learn in different ways. So being able to provide them training in different ways would be excellent. So key strategy number 3, and I said we were going to get to this again, it takes a village. You cannot do it by yourself. You are the hiring manager and you did a great job. You hired hopefully a star performer, but you can't be expected to do it all for the training. You want to get other people involved. One, leadership has to be involved. I know when I started here with the Omnia Group, I was able to meet with the CEO and the owner of the organization. And that made, okay, I was like, okay, well, that feels good. So, like they like me enough that I'm going to meet the person who created Omnia and who created the wonderful product that we have. And then I was also able to meet the people that I was going to be working with. So the other people on my team, we each went out to lunch. Each team member took me out to lunch, and that was a great time for me to just for them to tell me about the position, for me to get to know them, because once again, how much time do we spend with the people that we work with? 8 or 9 hours. I know everybody has their work husband and work wife and work best friend and all of those things. That's because this is a little family. So it does take a village. So you want to get leadership involved, you want to get their team members involved, other departments should be involved, because one department does not work on their own. You can't have service if you don't have sales, and you can't have sales if you don't have service. So everybody relies on everybody. You can't do anything if you don't have IT or marketing. So letting everyone know that you have this new employee starting, and then maybe having them have a little session of what do I do? So getting to know the marketing team. This is what the marketing team does, is what I'm talking about when it takes a village. It takes everyone to really get a star performer up and running and having a great onboarding process. The next piece that it takes is accountability. Hold new employees accountable for their own onboarding as well. When I say it takes a village, it also takes the employee too. They need to take some accountability to make sure that they're showing up, make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. The onboarding program should not be a one-way street with HR and the hiring manager on the giving end and the new hire on the receiving end. Engage and empower your new employee by providing a list of activities and action steps that they need to accomplish during the phase of the program. The hiring manager should really kind of basically ensure that time is set aside for these activities and that the hiring manager is following up to ensure that the employee is on track. Because we've probably all experienced where, yep, a program was put in place and they said that we needed to get XYZ done, but did anyone come by and check if X, Y, and Z was done? No. So did X, Y, and Z necessarily get done? Maybe, maybe not. But who knows? Because nobody was being held accountable. You want to hold your people accountable. And I always say that accountability is not a bad word. Accountability is a great word because if you hold people accountable, then they know that this project is important. They know that they need to bring their A game because everybody else is expected to bring their A game. So if I fall short, then I'm going to be the weak link on in the chain, and nobody wants to be the weak link. So having that accountability and truly having it and addressing it and letting everybody know that there's accountability is going to breed success. When you start lacking in accountability, you're going to start lacking in success because people know that they can just kind of do whatever because nobody's really checking in on me. The next key strategy is the check-in. Talking about that accountability, you want to follow up. As with anything, you will need to evaluate whether you're meeting your goals and your objectives. Because remember, key strategy number one was having the objectives. So going ahead, getting those down on paper. And so now we know what the objectives are, but we want to ensure that we're hitting those. And one way is, you want to interview and maybe survey your new employee as they're going through the onboarding process. And after they've been on the job for 6 months and a year maybe, just to make sure how we started in the beginning, are we still providing that at the, not at the end, because hopefully they're staying longer than a year, but are we providing that still in a year? Do they feel like they were well prepared during that first stint of onboarding to where they are now? So 365 days later, do you feel like those first 90 days truly helped you become successful and stick with us for 365? From that feedback, you should learn if the process is being implemented as designed, because we all know something, the plan may be great on paper and we're going to do this and we have it on our whiteboard, we have it all color coded and it's pretty, we done put sparkles on it, and this is the plan of all plans of onboarding. But where the rubber meets the road is really implementation. So we had a plan, but did we implement it properly? Sometimes I think most of the time things fail in implementation. It's not necessarily the plan, it's the implementation. And so listen for that feedback and make sure that it was implemented properly. And that and how the new employee feels about the onboarding experience and if they feel like they got the knowledge that they needed. Talk to the hiring managers. You also want to get their feedback because once again, on the plan, it may look right for the hiring manager to do this, X, Y, and Z. But in reality, the hiring manager doesn't have that much time because they're doing other things. So maybe we need to get other people involved to handle some of X, Y, and Z for that hiring manager. So get their feedback as well, excuse me. And finally, revise your process based on your feedback you receive. Don't be so rigid or so stuck to the plan that you can't make a change. My dad always said, if you see you're going down the wrong road, turn around. Don't keep going down that road. Why are you going down the road? Make a U-turn. So we may need to make a U-turn and recalibrate, and just like the GPS says, rerouting. Maybe we need to reroute. And so just be open to that piece. And then the next thing you want to be open to is communication. Now, communication is my end all, be all. The clients that are on this session with me know that communication is what I talk about the most. It's because it's, once again, not to go back to what my dad said, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that is always the truth. Effective communication is often the most important attribute of successful organization, leaders, and employees. Regular, effective communication between a manager and an employee can definitely create an environment of mutual trust and respect and optimizing productivity. And that's what we want to do during this onboarding process. You want to establish that communication style early. That's why we have a whole section on our Omnia report about communication because it is that important in regards to understanding how to best communicate with this person. When we're thinking about training and onboarding, maybe this person is very charismatic and gregarious, so they need those public kudos and attaboys, and that's how they get motivated to make that, to hit that next milestone. Or maybe there's somebody that wants that more privatized factual feedback. You can't just say, great job, Nicole. You got the facts off the fax machine. Let's all congratulate Nicole. Okay, Nicole is sitting there rolling her eyes. Maybe not, where I can see it, but she's rolling her eyes in her head thinking, I can't believe Tanya just gave me kudos for getting a fax off the machine. She has to be kidding me. This is ridiculous. And so you want to understand how this person communicates. And that's also going to help you when we're talking about that training. Maybe some people like the bigger overview point, overview. Other people want the detailed, fact by fact, objective. I need to know the why behind the what. Other people just give me the information, okay, and I'll take it. And while other people want the, I need to see the proof. Could I get that validation study of whatever you're telling me? Understanding that is going to help your training go a lot quicker. It's going to help your training go a lot smoother. And so that's why we really focus on communication style in our report. You want to set the expectation for communication with your employees as well. So it's not only understanding how to speak with them, but let's set the expectation of when and how we're going to communicate. Will you have one-on-one meetings? How often will they occur? Who will schedule them? What's the format? And how are the topics selected? You want to, you want to make sure that this person understands going in. You want clear, upfront, honest communication of what this looks like. And do you have an open door policy in your department? The communication style works well when the manager truly is able to accommodate drop-in interruptions and is willing to give the employee his or her full attention. I know I worked for a lady and she said she had an open door policy, but did she have an open door policy? Not at all. The door was always open, sure. So I guess if you took the statement literally, the door was open. But when she came in the morning, if you got a good morning, Tanya, this was an open policy day. If you just got a head nod, it was not an open door policy day. And that was like the running joke throughout the office because she all at every meeting she would always say, and you all know my door is always open, you can always come in and talk to me if you have any issues or concerns. And yet everybody would just kind of smirk in their head and say, really? No, not really, because 3 out of the 5 days was a non-open door policy day. And so you want to make sure that your actions are matching your words when we're talking about communication. It is imperative to realize the value of communication, and during the onboarding process especially. New employees' perceptions begin to develop during the onboarding process and are dramatically influenced by the organization's communication effectiveness. We all know that story about it is hard to build trust, but it's really easy to lose it. And that's where communication, it is really hard to gain it back once you've lost it. So making sure that you have that great open door, open, honest communication, and it truly is from the onset, will behoove you for the rest of that person's tenure. And then strategy number 7, which is our last strategy, is adaptability. Only the adaptable, not the strong, survive in the onboarding world. You have to be adaptable. You are working with individuals. At the Omni Group, there are 17 different behavioral types that you could be hiring, and all of them have different strengths, challenges, want to be communicated, and they have their own types of structure that they want. So you have to be adaptable. Excuse me. Think about 17 different personality types, 17 of them. So you need to be adaptable to all of those. So if the employee is having some challenges on one section, they don't feel like don't feel like you have to stick to the schedule. Maybe we need to, go to another section because maybe they're feeling their brain is on a little bit of overload. So maybe we stop have an icebreaker, have an engagement exercise. Maybe it's time, let's introduce them to IT or to marketing, or maybe get another trainer in there, just because sometimes some differences can help people learn better as well. And so you want to be adaptable. Just because you have the plan, that does not mean that the plan is in concrete and we can't move one iota off of that plan. So on day 5 at 2 o'clock, we're supposed to be on page 5, section B, 2A. Okay, if you're not in section B, 2A, it's fine. Don't get so wrapped up that you have to stick to this, schedule. Be flexible in regards to that. Every new employee will face challenges of a of adapting as well. So think about that. So it's not just you being adaptable. Think about them on the other side. They're this new person. They're trying to adapt to this new workspace, this new environment where everybody has, probably already has a click. And I'm not saying click in a bad way, because it's not necessarily bad that everybody is clicked up, but your service team probably has their little click, sales has theirs, marketing has theirs. It's not that we don't talk to each other. It's just that the service team knows what I'm going through, so I'm going to go run over to Cynthia, my BFF, and have a conversation with her about, I just got off this call and it was, XYZ, what happened. It was so great. I helped this person so much. Patting myself on the back. But you just want to make sure you understand their side as well, that they're having to adapt to a new situation. So be open to that as well. So those are your key strategies. So now let's talk about actually putting some of these strategies and having a plan, a schedule. So when we're thinking about the first day is one, greet them. I know this seems odd. I know you think, of course, Tanya, I'm going to have someone to greet them. I can raise my hand and say, I came to an office my first day, there was nobody there. The receptionist was there. She didn't know I was coming. There was nobody there to really greet me and say welcome, because she thought I was a vendor coming to try to sell something. So she was giving me the no solicitation speech. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm Tanya. I'm your new employee. So make sure you have someone there to greet them, or at least let the receptionist know that, hey, we have Tanya Devane starting today. She's going to be here around 9. Then, make it personal. I know here at the Omnia Group, when we have someone that starts, we'll decorate their door, or we'll make a sign, that outside of our office welcoming them. So you want them, because once again, this is the most excited that they're going to be. You're getting them at their best, at their highest of excitement. We want to keep it there. Next is you want to discuss the first week's schedule, but don't overwhelm them. No paper overload, no paper dump. Now, don't get me wrong. We all want the direct deposit form. Yes, could I get that form, please? But we don't need them to spend 4 or 5 hours with HR. Let's get the most important things out of the way on the first day, and then everything else can kind of be sprinkled in. Because you remember when I talked about sometimes people have like a little brain stop and they just need to regroup. This would be a good time to bring in HR so they can kind of get some more of that paperwork done. Next is give them a tour. Explain the importance of each office and department, each department, and that's when you're going to assign a mentor. So not only are you giving them a tour of the building, but you're also letting them know why each department is important to the mission, vision, and goal of the organization. And then you want to illuminate the significance of their role in the organization. Review how their role contributes to, again, the mission and vision statement that your organization has. You want them to know why you hired them and why they're going to be a great addition to the team. Because the reason people stay, one of the reasons people stay is because they feel respected. They feel like they are an important part of the success. So you want to highlight that, especially on the first day, because once again, we want to keep that energy going. And then during the first week, you want to get some more of that paperwork done. You also want to, this first week, start talking about the industry. Maybe you have someone brand new, or maybe you have someone that's been out of the workforce for a while, or maybe you have an intern that's coming in. Recent college graduate, talk to them about the industry, help them understand a little bit more about the industry, about about your competitors. And then, this is a great time to kind of get them signed up for um, publications that are specific to your industry, associations that are specific to your industry, giving them some material that they can read up on. And so now they will have real working knowledge about not only their position, but also the industry that they're working in. This first week, you're also assigning goals. So you want to start giving them goals to work towards, because remember, we talked about that accountability piece. So we can't hold them accountable for anything if we didn't give them any goals. So you want to start establishing goals on this first week as well. And I'm not saying big goals. So this is not the hiring manager putting 10 folders on your desk saying get through them, do some upselling and cross-selling. These are little goals that they can accomplish. Like maybe read this one magazine and tell me, give me, so we can talk about one of the most important things you found out about the industry. Those, goals like that, little goals that still reinforce training, still reinforce them learning about the position and the organization. And then performance review. You remember I talked about that earlier. This is the time that I'm kind of showing the performance review, putting it out on the front porch, letting them see exactly what they're going to get measured against. So now we're moving on to 30 to 60 days. And then we're going to create a timeline. So we want to, at this point, now we've created goals for the week, we've created goals up to 30 days. Now it's 30 to, so now we're going to create goals from 30 to 60 days, because maybe we need to readjust some of the goals that we made at the beginning. So now let's start creating a timeline of their success, or how we're going to make them successful. You want to have them shadow different departments. This is a great thing to do, because especially if you're talking about sales and service or marketing, when you have a service person that starts, letting them sit with sales to see how it's made, and then maybe they can get a better understanding of why maybe sales doesn't necessarily get all the information that service needs, because they can kind of feel that pressure of, I just need to get that check, I just need to get them to say yes, I just need to go ahead and close it. And then also, if you have a salesperson working with the service team, then that's going to highlight to them why it's so important for them to get that information. So now you are really creating great synergy between the two departments, because now everybody has a true working understanding of what it takes to make this job successful. And then ask for feedback. You're going to see this throughout as I'm going through the different days, different different times, because you want to ask for feedback throughout, because this is the only way you're going to know whether or not you're on the right track, whether or not what you're doing is successful. So ask for feedback. And this is once again, you can't get upset. You have to go into it with an open mind, because if you have some more assertive type people, and you would know if they're assertive by looking at their omnia, but if you have an assertive type person, they're going to be fairly comfortable giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if they have a more analytical, fact-oriented communication style, they're going to give it to you in a very matter-of-fact type of way. And they're not trying to be disrespectful. That's just how they communicate. So understanding that on the front end is very beneficial as well, so you don't get offended when they come off and say, well, this was wrong and I saw that and I think we should move this 2 inches over, or whatever the case may be. And so you want to ask for feedback, you want to listen and then make adjustments for that. And then you want to look at the 30, 60, 90-day review. So in this 30 to 60, 90 days, we want to look at we want to look at our 30-day review. So we're going over it, the 60-day review, what we've done, and then the 90-day review, what we're going to do in the future. So you want them to really be learning about the company and the culture. You want them to know the tools and resources. Knowledge is key. So you want them to truly understand where everything is, who to go to for what. And then you want them at this stage, they should be completing one small project so they can kind of get a glimpse of what a day in the life looks like for this role. So at this point, the 30 to 60 days, I would be giving them one little project that is really a part of their job and kind of see how they handle that piece. And now when we get to 60 to 90 days, it's talking about acclimating, it's talking about they should be in a routine. Now we're getting bigger projects, and like I said, you're going to see feedback again because we want to get that throughout the process. Acquainted with jobs and having some short-term wins and accomplishments and completing big projects will help with help from their team members, will create trust and team synergy. Because 60 to 90 days, now they should be working with some people in their department, kind of working on some team projects, maybe helping some people out with their projects. It takes longer, because you want to build their confidence, and sometimes that can take a little longer until they actually get their hands on something. Because think about it, people are sometimes a little nervous, like, can I do this job? Am I able to do this job? So sometimes they may lack a little confidence. So you can build their confidence by giving them those projects and getting them comfortable with the routine and the process. And then with that feedback, always being comfortable to make adjustments. If we need to, we can make an adjustment. Now to kind of summarize the 30, 60, 90-day check-in, because you remember throughout that time I kept talking about feedback, feedback, feedback. First, you want to put some time aside. You want to set specific times aside for the 30, 60, 90-day check-in. You want to make this a little more formal. Now, in between those days, in between the 30, 60, 90 days, you can have some informal kind of check-ins, but you want to have an official, formal, sit down, let's talk about it type of check-ins. Because I'm telling you, I worked for an organization where guess what my 30-day check-in was? I was getting on the elevator, my boss was getting off the elevator. How's everything going, Tanya? And just as I was about to say something, oh, the door closed. And did we have another check-in? Sure did not. So make sure that it's formal, because I know some of these things may sound, yeah, simple, but that manager didn't know that we were supposed to have a formal check-in. Next is you want to be prepared. So you want to have specific positive and negative feedback written down. We don't want to just talk about, oh, great, Katie got the facts off the fax machine. No, that's not going to cut it. So we want to have some specifics. And the person has done something great, something wonderful. So you may have to dig deep, but if you have to dig that deep, then we really need to talk about the check-in piece. Maybe we need to do more check-ins. Maybe we're not doing enough informal check-ins because the person shouldn't be struggling that much. Or maybe you should have given them an omnia cognitive report, and so that would help you and understand if they have the reasoning ability to do the position. Like my dad said, sometimes people have the six-pack without the holders. I know I've talked about my dad a lot, but he had a lot of great one-liners. So you want to make sure that you have some specifics written down, so things that you can really work on, actionable items that they can move forward on, and think of those negativities as opportunities for improvement. And then it should really be a two-way conversation. So you want to listen more than talk. After you've given the specific positive and negative feedback, now let's let them talk. Let's let them have time to discuss their concerns. What did they see as their strengths these last 30, 60, 90 days? What are some of the challenges they had those last 30, 60, 90 days? And where could I be more of a support to you? What else do you need to be successful? And so just give them the floor and let them have that conversation. And then you want to follow up after you've had these 30, 60, 90-day check-ins. You want to follow up because nobody wants a boss that is all talk and no action. Meaning, yep, okay, we got this 30-day, and so for the next 30 days, so for our 60-day review, we're going to do this, this, this. So within that 30, 60 days, I'm going to help you. learn more about the intranet that we have. I'm going to help you learn how to find documents on our O Drive. And then within that 30, 60 days, no hide nor hair of the manager. No one, you didn't come and help me. I still don't know. Like I had to try to find it myself. So don't just talk the talk, you need to walk the walk. That's also going to build trust, and that's also going to help in synergy as well. Meaning now I feel like I can come to you. I feel like we are really a part of a team. I feel like you really have my back and that you really want me to be successful because you are helping me to be successful. So really think about those 30, 60, 90-day check-ins. And now when we think about the check-ins, we've talked about the strategy. I just want to go over some key elements when we're talking about the onboarding process. One is that organizational commitment. Strength of the feeling of responsibility that an employee has towards the mission of the organization is imperative. You want them to feel like they are a part of it. You want them to know what part of that mission statement is their job covering. The next piece is career pathing. Everybody wants to move forward. I'm not saying everybody might not want a promotion, but everybody wants to always feel challenged in their job, in their role. So you want to do that career pathing, letting them know where this position can take you. Maybe it's not necessarily a promotion. Maybe it's just being put lead on projects, putting lead or getting to lead different activities within the organization. And then continuity. You want to start something, finish it, and continue doing it. Don't just say that we're going to start this employee engagement activity and then no one ever sees the employee engagement activity ever again. Or we're going to start these town hall meetings, and then there's never any town hall meetings. Or I am really dedicated to your training, but you never offer any training. So you just want to make sure that you have a lot of continuity in your program. And then evaluate. You have to constantly evaluate. We can't just think that everything we say, every plan we have is gold, 24 karat, and we don't need to readjust or look at it again. We want to always continue to evaluate because technology changes, new things are out there. Let's make sure that we have the latest and greatest thing that's going to work for our organization. And then I know I talked about it once, but I can't help but talk about it again, communication. Communication is key for your success. If you're not communicating, you're going to be dead in the water. And then feedback. If you're not listening to feedback, you're not going to increase your retention rates, because if I don't feel like I'm being heard as an employee, I'm not going to stay around, because why am I here? If you think you know everything and can do everything, why am I still here? And I'm here on the front lines. I know what's going on, with our clients, with our customers. Take my feedback to heart. I'm not saying that employees want you to institute every single program that they've ever come out of their mouth, but they do want to feel like they've been heard and that you thought about it. And then, so now we have the elements. Let's talk about some takeaways in regard to that onboarding program. It needs to be comprehensive, all encompassing, cover a lot of different areas. You want to assign a mentor. That is so important in regard to having that person be successful. Somebody that they can go to, a buddy, because sometimes you have a question, you don't necessarily want to go to your boss because I don't want my boss to think that I'm stupid, like I should already know this, but I can go to my coworker, to my mentor and ask them, and that'll be fine. Include management in the process. If management is not on board, if leadership is not on board, it is not going to be a successful program, because everything starts at the top. So if it's not solid at the top, it's going to crumble at the bottom. And then do your check-ins. You want to make sure that the employee is on the right path. The employee should not get to their 30 days and realize that they've been doing something wrong or be shocked by the review. They should already know ahead of time. And so you should already have plans in place before that review happens. And then it doesn't stop after 90 days. Like I said, onboarding is a process, and it can last up to a year, because you want this person to stay with you for longer than a year. So you should still be onboarding them till they get really comfortable with with your company, with your organization, and that they feel engaged in the process. Are there any questions that anyone has? You can go ahead and type those in at the bottom. I know when I've given this session before, I've had people ask, is there some days that are better than others to start a new hire? I always say don't start them on a Monday or a Friday because we all know over the weekend something has happened. We're going to have to put the fires out that happened over the weekend. And so Monday is always a hard time to start someone. And then Friday, you're trying to clean everything else out. You're trying to clean everything up that's happened for the week. Excuse me, for the week. And so Fridays are a hard day. I would always say between Tuesday and Thursday, and don't start them when your company opens. So if your company opens at 8:30, I would probably bring them in at 9:30 or 10 because that will give you enough time to kind of answer the emails that happen and then be prepared for them when they start. So, um, just, in closing, excuse me, and I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the takeaways, the coaching suggestions, onboarding sample checklist, and the slide deck of the presentation. It's essential when you're thinking about onboarding that you want to make sure that the person is staying engaged, that they are excited about the process. I just want to thank everyone for joining today's session, and you can click on the link register over to the left-hand side for next Thursday's webinar, how to deliver a painless 90-day performance evaluation, because last week, Wendy took us to the interview. I'm taking you through the onboarding process. Kim next week is going to talk about the 90-day evaluation process. And so, it's time for review. And so Kim's going to really help walk you through and how to navigate that process in regards to giving that review that is engaging to the employee. There's nothing more gratifying to a new employee than to be enthusiastically greeted by coworkers who have taken the time to find out who they are and that who can contribute to their success. I want to thank you all today for joining me. If you do have any questions, I will be on the line. And guess what? You're getting out a minute early. Thank you all and have a great day.